Tell them we were never here. Those 6 words, scrawled on a blood-speckled page and hidden beneath a loose floorboard, would become the most haunting discovery in the Bishop family estate. Written by a trembling hand, unsigned and desperate, it was just the beginning of what would unravel into one of the most disturbing family mysteries in American history. Picture this. Windmere, a sleepy town of barely 3,000 souls, where everyone knows everyone. But the Bishops, they were different. Their name carried weight, power mixed with an uncomfortable silence that made people look away when you mentioned them. They lived up on that hill, in an estate that loomed over the town like some kind of watchful guardian, or predator. For most of the early 1900s, the Bishop family might as well have been ghosts. They didn't show up at Sunday service, never browsed the local shops, didn't chat with neighbors over garden fences, but oh, the stories people whispered, crying, echoing from the woods after midnight, lights flickering in windows of a house that had been empty for years, and that smell, God, that smell, like fresh paint mixed with rotting earth, seeping from their boarded-up cellar. Then came 1962. The Bishop house went up in flames under circumstances that still make investigators uncomfortable. No death certificates, no survivors to interview, no bodies recovered. All that remained was a blackened foundation, whispered rumors about psychological experiments, and a case file so heavily redacted that even town officials couldn't get their hands on the full story. For 58 years, those records stayed locked away, until they weren't. And what they revealed wasn't just disturbing, it challenged everything we thought we knew about what humans are capable of. So let me ask you, who were the Bishops really? On paper, they looked respectable enough. Doctors, historians, landowners, heirs with old money, the kind of family that taught their kids Latin before they could properly speak English, the kind that buried their dead in unmarked graves behind the house and paid handsomely for people to mind their own business. But inside those walls, silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that makes your skin crawl, the kind that investigators would later realize might not have been a choice at all. Here's where it gets weird. Their state archive file, it's missing over 70 pages, just gone. Family photographs have been deliberately torn where faces should be. And get this. In 1984, someone found a locked box under their floorboards labeled Response Conditioning Techniques, unauthorized copy. What's inside? Still classified to this day. The Bishops didn't just disappear. It's like they systematically erased themselves before anyone else could. Makes you wonder, were they running from something or were they hiding it? Even now, neighbors who lived right next door struggle to remember basic details about them. One elderly woman told me, the Bishops cast shadows that stretched even when the sun had set. Another said something that still gives me chills. We never called the police, not because we were scared, we just didn't want the house to notice us noticing. This isn't some creepypasta or late-night Reddit fiction. This is compiled from actual historical records, fragmented, censored, and full of contradictions that shouldn't exist. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story that was never supposed to be pieced together. Welcome to the macabre history of the Bishop family, a sinister tale. The paper trail is a mess, but what we do have paints a deeply unsettling picture. Most of what survived comes from old state hospital memos, police radio transcripts, and one caretaker's journal from 1947. When you put it all together, you see a family that didn't just withdraw from society. They seemed to be tunneling deeper into something else entirely. Let's start at the beginning. 1903. Augustus Bishop buys 47 acres on the edge of Windmere and builds what locals would come to call the Bishop House. 4 stories, underground cellars, and architectural features that made no sense, hidden doors, passages that led nowhere. Augustus and his wife Eleanor had one child who survived, Thomas. And here's where it gets strange. Neighbors reported not seeing the boy for 7 straight years. When someone finally asked Augustus about it, he simply said, "He's not ready for the outside." The first real tragedy hit in 1911. Sarah Linton, the family's only maid, went missing after neighbors saw her running from the house in her nightgown, screaming. Her body was never found, Police wrote it off as a runaway case. Case closed. By 1924, Thomas had inherited the estate, and that's when things took a darker turn. A part-time gardener's journal describes walking into the dining room to find rows of faceless mannequins seated at the table. A town constable who visited to collect property taxes reported being led down a narrow hallway lined with handwritten pages nailed to every wall. When he asked about them, Thomas smiled and said something that still makes my blood run cold. "We don't speak out loud here anymore. The house asked us not to." Between 1925 and 1937, 12 people who either worked at or visited the property vanished. No investigations that stuck, no charges filed. Some folks thought the bishops were paying off the authorities. Others believed nobody wanted to disturb whatever was sleeping under that house. But it wasn't just people disappearing. It was like pieces of reality were being erased. State asylum records show a woman named Carolyn Bishop, Thomas's niece, was admitted for what they called delusional possession of knowledge. She claimed she could see entire decades happening all at once. She died in 1933 after swallowing an entire reel of undeveloped film. Let that sink in. In 1940, workers found a lead box buried near the estate containing sound recordings. These weren't normal recordings. Investigators described hearing backward laughter, repeated Latin phrases, and choking sounds that didn't match any known human vocal patterns. But the most chilling discovery came in 1961, just a year before the fire. A land surveyor found a hidden panel in the west wing that opened into a windowless room covered floor to ceiling with mirrors. The walls were covered in decades of handwritten messages. "Don't look at yourself too long. It hears your thoughts. If you make eye contact with the mirror version, run." And over again. "It's not me in here anymore." The next year, the house burned from the inside out. No confirmed cause, no bodies, just ash and silence, except for one phrase scratched into the stone beneath the west cellar: "Remember us only if you're ready to forget yourself." Even today, paranormal investigators debate what really happened in that house. Mental illness? Some kind of ritualistic practice? Something worse? The locals still avoid the site. Parents tell their kids the land is poisoned. Hunting dogs get sick if they wander too close. Nothing grows on that soil, not even weeds. But through every police report, every psychiatric file, every whispered story, one thing remains constant: the Bishop name refuses to die. Here's the thing that really gets me. The Bishop family didn't just vanish from history. It's like someone carefully edited them out. You'd think a wealthy family's estate burning to the ground would make headlines, right? Not a single newspaper article, no regional coverage. Town officials from 1962 swear they never even filed a police report. It's as if everyone agreed, without saying a word, to pretend it never happened. Former Mayor Harold Lintwood finally broke his silence in 1992. "We did our best to forget. That family belonged to another kind of history, the kind we bury, not write." Kids who grew up near the estate call it the Quiet Hill. Their parents warned them not to look toward the Bishop property after dark. Grandparents would threaten misbehaving children. "Keep lying, and you'll be sent to dinner at the Bishop house." It became folklore before anyone admitted it was fact. Then, in the late 70s, someone leaked something they shouldn't have. A paranormal historian received anonymous U.S. Department of Health files from 1956 containing this passage. Subjects identified as part of the Bishop study cluster demonstrate recursive memory splitting and hypersuggestibility. Social assimilation not advised. Terminate further observation unless sanctioned through Level C clearance. Some researchers think the bishops were unwitting subjects in classified behavioral experiments. Isolation, repetition, mirror therapy gone wrong. Others believe the bishops were running their own unauthorized experiments, diving into psychological territories the government didn't even know existed. One theory suggests they were trying to separate memory from personality itself. Another proposes they'd found a way to leave emotional imprints, echoes of thoughts tied to places, objects, reflections. Sure, skeptics dismiss it all as small-town legends and unreliable witnesses, but even they go quiet when you mention what's still happening at the ruins. Plants won't grow, dogs won't bark. 3 separate drone flights in the last decade have crashed the moment they crossed the property line. Total signal loss, batteries drained instantly. What haunts me isn't just the Bishop story, it's how the whole town seemed to make an unspoken pact. Windmere doesn't preserve stories, it buries them. They say time heals all wounds, but some legacies just sit there and rot. The Bishop house burned in 1962, but some things refused to burn. Investigators found 3 items in the stern cellar, completely untouched by the flames. A mirror shard that was still cold to the touch, a silver fork with "It Remembers" carved into the handle, and fragments of a leather journal, possibly Carolyn's. The journal entries are disturbing. Different handwriting styles fighting for space on the same pages. One entry warns, "Mirrors should never face each other. She walks through if they do." Another pleads, "They forget me while I'm still looking at them. Don't forget me, don't." The last readable page, "I've hidden the key inside a prayer, but prayers don't always stay quiet." When paranormal researcher Dr. Lena Hartley tried to conduct a seance at the ruins, she suddenly stopped, whispered, "The walls are lying," and cancelled everything. She died 2 months later from unknown causes. Her assistant quit the field entirely. Nobody's been legally allowed on the property since 2009. That year, a film student's drone caught something, a figure standing perfectly still in the ruins. The footage corrupted before anyone could analyze it properly. The SD card vanished. Then there are the survivor stories. In 2016, a 76-year-old woman named Lottie Caldwell claimed on a podcast that she was the last original bishop, said she was adopted out at age 6 by a governess who didn't want what happened to her mother to happen again. She spoke in riddles the entire interview, mentioned hearing laughter in her pillow stuffing, and insisted the bloodline wasn't cursed. It was drafted. She disappeared from her assisted living facility later that year, still unsolved. The internet, of course, has run wild with bishop theories. Some say the house sits on a memory fracture, a place where time splits. Others think the bishops were keeping something from getting out, not keeping people from getting in. There's even a rumor about a vinyl record called The Bishop Audit, that surfaced in 2011. Supposedly piano music with 41 seconds of layered whispers at the end. Play it backward and you hear the names of the missing, but only in Latin. No verified copy exists. Whether you believe the folklore or stick to the facts, one thing's clear. The bishop story didn't end with that fire. It demands to be remembered, even if it doesn't remember you back. They were never arrested, never formally accused of anything, barely acknowledged while they were alive. Yet here we are, decades later, still trying to decode the whispers in their walls, still reading names etched in mirrors that reflect nothing back. The Bishop family didn't just disappear, they rewrote the parts of themselves we were never meant to find. So I'll ask again, who were they really? Were they broken people caught in generational trauma, lost in dangerous experiments and isolation? Were they guardians of something ancient, something that lives not in flesh but in memory itself, seeping through stones and bleeding through generations? Or were they something else, not victims, not protectors, but volunteers? Maybe the bishops weren't crying for help. Maybe they were listening to something the rest of us can't hear. And maybe, just maybe, it changed them enough to lock their doors, burn their home, tear their own faces from family photos one by one, until all that remained was a name and shadows that stretched too far from where windows used to be. This wasn't a haunting. This was a family becoming something more terrifying, and possibly more deliberate, than death itself. The Bishop legacy doesn't haunt Windmere through ghost sightings or cursed objects. It lingers in the way nobody visits. It lives in how people remember almost nothing, until you say the name. Then something shifts in their eyes. This was the macabre history of the Bishop family, a sinister tale.